What is going on, guys? This is the third episode of my mixed martial arts podcast. I am happy to say I have not missed a week yet, even though it's only 3 weeks. Speaking of, hope you all had a wonderful week. Getting into this episode, we are going to be breaking down the UFC 220 just because I'm a little late on the fight night coming up, and I'm not too crazy interested in it. I'm going to watch it for the Paige Van Zant fight, but that's probably about it. But the UFC 220 card is something completely different because I personally think one of the fights on this card definitely has the potential to be fight of the year. And I can't wait to see it. I know I've been saying I can't wait to see a lot of fights, and I'm glad that I have to keep saying that. That makes me happy that I'm constantly excited to see these fights because that means UFC is doing a good job. They're getting my attention, and I like that. I really enjoy it. And the fight that I am that excited for is actually the headliner of UFC 220, Stipe Miocic versus Francis. This fight, to me, means a lot. First off, Stipe is the person that got me really into MMA. Before, I used to just kind of hear about MMA, and I watched some of it with my dad a while back, like in the Chuck Liddell, Randy Couture days. But Stipe was the person that got me really into it, looking at it as more of like a game of chess instead of just fighting. Like it's something that's really technical, putting your strategy against somebody else's. I started looking at it that way when I saw Stipe, because that's what Stipe does. Stipe finds his strategy and he executes it so well. And this fight means so much to me because I like Stipe a lot, especially because I'm from Ohio. And Stipe is genuinely just a very good guy. I mean, he's a firefighter, and he is the baddest man on the planet, the UFC heavyweight champion of the world. That is just a dope fucking person, but he's not this super popular superstar because he doesn't market himself. He's just a kind of cool, laid back guy, which is cool. But he's facing Francis Ngannou, and Francis Ngannou is a killer. I'm sure all of you have seen the whole one punch knockout of Alistair Overeem that left him like locked up on the octagon floor, which was brutal and amazing. Such an amazing display of skill of Francis. It just shows how fearless he is, man. Like, he has been through so much, working in a sand mine when he was 12, being homeless for so long. It's like a superhero story, especially when he goes and does that to Alistair Overeem. And he's so new in a way where he's just not scared of seasoned people because he doesn't know what his weak spots are yet. He wow, I just said he 3 times. Sorry about that. He's kind of convincing himself of what the hype train Francis Ngannou is, and it's hard not to when you're 11-1 and just murking legends left and right. Like, Alistair Overeem has such an insane career, but Francis Ngannou just went in there and made quick work of him, and he's been doing so well and he's been fighting so well. And same with Stipe. That's the thing. UFC has been marketing Francis so hard these past couple of months because let's be real, they want they want Francis to win. Like, they've invested so much time in him, so much money. He lives at the UFC Institute. Like, they want him to win, which is unfortunate for Stipe. And they're marketing Francis Ngannou's like past 5 consecutive knockouts. Stipe has those too. Stipe has done that also. Stipe is so good, but when it comes to picking who I want to win, my heart says Stipe. But man, I am so scared of what happens when Francis lands a punch on Stipe. Because yes, Stipe has been in the octagon with hard hitters. Yes, he's been in the octagon with Mark Hunt. But it's Francis and Ngannou. Like, he has the world record for the strongest punch. I understand it was the punching machine and who all has punched that. That makes sense. But his punching power is so legit. He lifts people off of the ground and puts their lights out in one punch. His fights don't last long. He doesn't have to work long, and he's just in the UFC Institute, only knows a life of training, just going at it 24/7. If anything, he's going to be champion. If it doesn't happen now, he's going to be. Because right now, Stipe is still in his prime, and he is still an absolute monster. And I'm sure he understands how dangerous Francis is. Yes, he's trying to play it off, trying to act cool. Which, I mean, I would understand that too, but Francis is like an axe murderer. It is hard to act cool around that man. He can knock out basically anyone on this earth. Like, Francis is a very scary dude, but Steve just has a really good poker face. I would be scared of that too. It was pretty. I would be honestly pretty annoyed when Dana at the press conference for this fight, they were listing off how strong Francis's punch is, like as strong as a Ford Escort going at full speed, while Stipe was right next to him. Like, that's hard to not look at Stipe's reaction when Dana's saying that. I feel like that's like UFC just really wants Francis to win, and that's kind of clear. But if I had to pick this fight, I think my heart says Stipe's gonna win. I think my brain says that too, just because Francis doesn't have a lot of experience. I don't. It's not a crazy difference. I think it's like 60-40 because Francis is on such a momentum train right now, and his knockout power is so very real and so very there, and it's scary. It's really scary. He's a scary dude. I can't wait to see this fight, and I can't wait to review this fight after it's over. Hopefully, it's not me doing a 30-second memorial for Steve, because that would be a very sad time. All right. So, the next fight, also interesting. I wouldn't say as interesting, but it's just kind of funny how it came to be, and especially the circumstances of this fight is. Daniel Cormier versus Volkan Ozdemir. This is a genuinely hysterical fight to me, just because when you look at somebody like Daniel Cormier, he's so high caliber. It's crazy, Like, he's never been knocked out besides the John Jones, whole fiasco, and he's only lost once, and that one other time was to John Jones once again. It did count as a loss because it was not proven to be enhancements, but the only other loss was to John Jones. Besides that, he has an immaculate record, and he has such a great wrestling pedigree. It's insane. And he's fighting Volkan Ozdemir through a Twitter poll, which I'm not saying Volkan Ozdemir doesn't deserve it. He definitely does, especially with his last fights being knockouts within seconds over Jim Manoa and Misha Kruknov. All first round knockouts. Note that his last fight that didn't end in a knockout was still a win against Oven St. Preux. So he definitely can fight. But when it comes to Daniel Cormier, I don't know if Daniel Cormier is going to let Volkan get that bomb off that he has landed on everyone else. And also, if he does get that bomb off, I'm not sure it is going to take down Daniel Cormier like it does to seemingly everybody else. Because Daniel Cormier has taken some tough shots. I mean, he took that leg kick from John Jones, not leg kick, the head kick from John Jones, square. And didn't even, he clearly was in a different world, but he didn't fall. He didn't KO. And he was still able to move and run for as long as he was before John Jones did that vicious trip on him. But Daniel Cormier does not go down easy by any means. And I don't think that Volkan will be able to take him out with those early strikes that he has, those early bombs that he throws. And it's going to be a problem when it gets into the fourth and fifth rounds, and Daniel Cormier is going to be coming at you as hard as he did in the first round, if not harder, putting all of his weight onto you, making it super hard for you to breathe. So I don't think Volkan Ozdemir wins this fight. I think it's definitely Daniel Cormier, and He'll probably just win by unanimous decision. That's what I would call it. It's just going to be basically for a good 5 rounds. And on to the next fight. I'm not actually sure how long this card goes on, so I decided to go up to the Thomas Almeida Rob Font fight because I think that might be where it's ending. But we are on the Calvin Kattar and Shane Burgos fight. This fight to me is interesting because it's kind of 50-50. Like, I really don't know who's necessarily going to win this fight because Shane Burgos, he's 10-0 and has a 80% finish rate, 40% KOs, 40% submissions. So he's really versatile. But so is Calvin Kattar, and they both also have really, really good takedown defense. So it's going to be a really interesting fight. I honestly don't know how I can pick who would win this fight unless, let's look at their records here. Yeah, they're both on pretty nice win streaks right now. Calvin Kattar just recently got into the UFC, but his last win was the G14 card over Andre Feeling, which was a great fight. And then Shane Burgos, I haven't seen too many of his fights. I think I saw his 210 fight against Charles Rosa, but he's also on a 3-win streak. So both of these guys do have a lot of momentum going into this fight. If I had to pick somebody, it would be Shane Burgos just because his finishing rate is so high and he's going to go in there definitely confident and he knows that he can finish the fight at basically any position and have a easy time at it. So that's going to be my pick. I don't know if I would bet on it because I'm honestly not too sure. I think it's probably close to 50-50 on this one. But interesting nonetheless. And then the last fight that I will be reviewing of this card, Thomas Almeida versus Rob Font. This one to me is actually pretty interesting because I've seen Rob Font's last few fights, and of course Thomas Almeida. I mean, he's Thomas Almeida. He's of course super interesting to watch. I cannot wait to see this, just because Thomas Almeida recently lost, but his last 2 losses were against guys that have been really doing work at, like Cody Garbrandt and Jimmy Rivera. Jimmy Rivera is actually fighting on this fight night that's coming up. I'm pretty sure. So I want to see how that fight goes. And that'll say a lot to this loss, honestly, on his record. Because if he wins that, that's a big move up for Jimmy Rivera. And Cody Garbrandt, of course, super high caliber. He was just a champion. So when he goes against Rob Font, he just lost his last fight. But besides that, he got 2 wins in a row. And it was a submission and a KO. So as long as he doesn't let that last fight get to him and he understands that he still has the skill set to get to Thomas Almeida, I think it's once again going to be a close fight. But overall, I would assume Thomas Almeida is probably going to outclass him just because his striking is super good and accurate. And I think he's definitely going to be able to outpace him for most of the fight. All right, we'll take a drink real quick. Okay, I think it is time for some current events, guys. So there was a little rumor going on. Saw the headline: Khabib headed to UFC 220 on UFC's dime for a big announcement. And somebody says it's McGregor. Here's what I think about this. I don't think that Khabib would fight McGregor. I think the most realistic fight coming back from McGregor would be to fight Tony Ferguson and unify the belt. I think that's next to Nate Diaz. A lot of people doubt the pay-per-views that would be brought in by Tony Ferguson, but I think it could be marketed really well. And I think besides Tony Ferguson, the next best-selling thing would probably be the Nate Diaz fight, which I don't think will happen. I think it's probably going to be Conor unifying the title with Tony because he kills 2 birds with 1 stone there. First off, he potentially defends the belt. He unclogs the lightweight division, and he kind of restores his name somewhat. He still has the record for the longest time holding the belt and not defending it, and that's not good. That's never going to be good, but if he can defend it multiple times, that's just kind of going to be nothing. So I don't think it'll be Khabib. If anything, maybe they heard McGregor is going to take longer and he's probably going to be stripped of the belt, which it would probably be him announcing that he is going to fight Tony Ferguson, which would be awesome because I was super sad when that fight was pulled. And I want to see it happen, especially if it was for the just real title, the real lightweight title. That would be interesting. That's definitely what I want to see. All right, next event here. This is just something that I found interesting because there was all this drama about the TJ Dillashaw fighting Mighty Mouse and all this stuff with Mighty Mouse saying basically they don't want to fight TJ. He wants to just stay in his division, keep stacking up that record higher, and there's no point in giving TJ the shot when he hasn't done anything in Mighty Mouse's division, which to me made sense. A lot of people were mad at him because Mighty Mouse has been complaining so much about not getting money fights, but Mighty Mouse really is the king of that division. He kind of does at this point get to choose who he fights next, so that makes sense to me. But this just came out that he's actually went through a surgery on his shoulder that basically is going to have quite a long recovery time. I think what I read was 6 months. And I did see him post on Twitter. He did get out of surgery. It went well. So everything is good. And now he is just on the road to recovery. I can't wait to see him back in the octagon. Part of me hopes it's with TJ, but I also think Mighty Mouse probably won't let that happen unless it is some insane amount of. The next topic, something I am very excited for because this fight was recently, I don't remember what pay-per-view it was scheduled for. No, it was the Max Holloway Jose Aldo Part 2. When Frankie Edgar pulled out of his camp, I think it was for something with his arm. It clearly wasn't broken because he's going to fight at UFC 222, which I am super excited for because the whole Jose Aldo fight, I wasn't extremely excited for in that. I was more excited for the Alistair Overeem Francis fight. I think that was on that card. But I was more excited for that fight for sure because the Jose Aldo fight, you kind of saw Max just overpower him in the first fight the same exact way in round 3-2. Just eventually get ramped up too much where Jose Aldo just can't take it and kind of collapses under the pressure. And it was quite clear that Max was definitely going to be able to do that again after like the second round. You were just like, okay, well, that's how this is going to go. And Max called it out. He said to the commentators that that was going to happen. So I'm first off, I'm very happy that he's fighting right after the Jose Aldo fight, and I'm very happy that it's Frankie Edgar. Just because Frankie Edgar, even though he's getting a little older, he is a champion at fucking getting in there, getting on you, making you feel his weight, and just wearing you down, grinding you, and punching you every step of the way, sort like just smushing you. And I want to see how Max Holloway is going to respond to that, because Max Holloway is very smart. He's very good at countering stuff, but getting in there with an expert at wrestling like Frankie Edgar is, especially with his ground and pound, I want to see how Max Holloway is going to counter that, especially if you just see that Max Holloway can just slide him off, because if that's so, that is very, very scary for that whole division. I can't wait to see this fight because it is going to prove so much more for Max Holloway. He already won Fighter of the Year last year because of his immaculate display of skill in all of his past fights. But now, man, I am hyped for this. Just because it's just gonna be another stepping stone for Max Holloway, or if it wins, or Frankie Edgar is just going to cement his legacy as if it already wasn't. And I just can't wait for that fight. And then the last piece of news that we actually have for this podcast is something very interesting and something I'm also very excited about. It is Big John McCarthy actually retired from the UFC, and now he is moving on to Bellator as a commentator. I cannot wait to hear him in Bellator 192. I'm definitely watching that. That was one of the best additions to that Bellator card, and that Bellator card's already great. Like, I cannot wait to hear Big John, especially because he's in there as a color commentator. I think it's going to be great. I think it was such a smart move. And Big John, he was enthusiastic to go there and work with Scott Coker. So I can't wait to see him on the casting desk. And I think it's going to be a huge addition to Bellator, and it's going to just even help them even more. They had a great year last year. I think 2018 is honestly going to be even better for them. And I hope it is. I hope the UFC has some very serious competitions because they need it. I mean, UFC is doing good fights right now, but man, with the competition right at your neck, I want to see what UFC tries to make them. That would be amazing to see. And I'm just super excited for that. I do plan to do a not UFC, sorry, Bellator 192 fight card preview breakdown before a week from now. So basically the 18th. Because yeah, I'm recording this on the 10th and it's going to be up on the 11th. So the 18th, the Bellator 192 card breakdown will probably be there. And then the week after that will be the UFC 222 breakdown. And I might even throw the 192 card in there on top of that. Just all depends. All depend on how it goes down. But that would be the end of this episode. If you guys enjoyed it, please make sure to leave a like. Tell all of your friends about it. Anyways, guys, it's been Jacob, and peace out.